right. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 5. The elders which are among you I exhort, who am also an elder and a witness of the suffering of Messiah, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of Yahweh which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind, neither as being lords over Yahweh's heritage, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd shall appear, you shall receive a crown of glory that fadeth not away. Likewise, you younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For Yahweh resists the proud, and gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of Yahweh, that he may exalt you in due time. Casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil is a roaring lion, walks about, seeking whom he may devour, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in you, your brethren that are in the world. But the Elohim of all grace, who has called us unto his eternal glory by Messiah Yeshua, after that you have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. On a continental flight, a pilot begins his usual comments to the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome aboard the Continental Flight 428. This is your captain speaking, and I have some information about our flight. We've reached cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, and it will be turning down the lights. Turning down the lights is for your comfort and to enhance the appearance of your flight attendants. Just a few observations. There may be 50 ways to leave your lover, but there are only 4 ways off this airplane. In case of an emergency, your flight attendant will assist you on leaving the plane. In the event of an emergency water landing, your seat cushions can be used for flotations, and if that happens, please paddle to shore and take the cushions with our compliments. Later, after the plane landed, the passengers were about to disembark, and the pilot again came on and said, as you exit the plane, make sure to gather all your belongings. Anything left behind will be evenly distributed among the flight attendants. Please do not leave children and spouses. Now, obviously, that pilot was just having fun with his passengers. I'm sure he'd grown tired of saying the same stale speech over and over again for weeks on end, and just wanted to liven things up a bit. But most of the time, pilots and airline crews are very serious about their instructions. In fact, there's a website that has wordings for pilots to use in every possible situation. Some were speeches the pilot might give in the event of turbulence where the plane was shaken by crosswinds and downdrafts. Some were about depressurization of the cabin of the plane. Some about aborted takeoffs where the plane was forced to stay on the tarmac. Bomb threats, hijackings, and so on. Apparently, there are airlines that have instructions on how their pilots should address any serious situation. The one thing I noticed about all these instructions was that the pilot's role was to tell passengers what they needed to know in order to have a safe and comforting trip. Now here in 1 Peter 5 is telling us what we as believers need to know. Throughout this letter, we've been repeatedly reminded that we are strangers and aliens in this world. We don't belong here. And because we don't belong here, because we're just passing through this world, the Bible repeatedly tells us that we will encounter difficult times. we will suffer. We will be persecuted for our faith. You don't believe that? Why haven't you been watching the news? And so we need to be told how we're going to ride out these storms of life. We need to be told what's being done to protect us. We need to be assured that Yahweh will always be there with us in those difficult times. The first thing Peter does in this 5th chapter is to introduce us to the flight crew. These are the people who are responsible for your well-being and comfort. These are the ones who's on board, who watches over you and protects you. These are the ones who are trained to keep you safe when life gets difficult. Who are these people? They're called elders. 1 Peter 5, verse 1 to 3 tells us, "To the elders among you, I appeal as a fellow elder, a witness of Messiah's suffering, and one who also will share in the glory to be revealed. Be shepherds of Yahweh's flock that is under your care, serving as overseers, not because you must, but because you are willing, as Yahweh wants you to be, not greedy for money." Look out these mega churches. That's the first thing on their minds. "But be eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but be examples to the flock." The elders are the first line of defense in the congregation. They are the ones who are shepherds and overseers of all of us. Yahweh has entrusted them with you and me. And their job is to be our servants and our examples. That's why Yahweh was so demanding in their qualifications. Elders are to be good fathers and husbands. They are to be men who know what the Bible says and have the backbone to stand up for good doctrine. They're to be men who are so dedicated to Messiah in their daily lives that even the world knows they take their faith seriously and live for Yeshua in all that they do. We've been blessed here to have the finest elders I've ever met. And that's a good thing. In fact, it's critical that our survival as believers and our safety as a church is in their hands. I read a true story of a man who was on a flight in California and that he's been delayed for some time in Sacramento. The flight attendant explained that there would be a 45-minute delay, and if they wanted to get off the aircraft, they would reboard in 30 minutes. Everybody got off the plane except one gentleman who was blind. His seeing-eye dog lay quietly underneath the seats in front of him the entire flight. He had apparently flown this very flight before because the pilot approached him and called him by name. "Keith, we're in Sacramento for almost an hour. Would you like to get off and stretch your legs?" Keith replied, "No thanks, but maybe my dog would like to stretch his legs." So the pilot got off the plane to walk his seeing-eye dog. Now picture this. All the people in the gate area stopped where they were. All eyes were focused on the pilot as he walked off the plane with a seeing-eye dog. And the pilot was even wearing sunglasses. When the people saw this pilot with that dog, they all scattered. They not only tried to change planes, but they also tried to change the airlines. Now, why did they react that way? Why did they all become scared and run away? Because they thought their pilot was blind, and they had no desire to trust their lives to a man who couldn't see to fly their plane. Elders are called to lead the congregation. And as Yeshua noted, you don't want the blind leading the blind. You all could fall in a pit together. Men who don't know how to love their wives and raise their kids, men who don't know their Bible and don't have the backbone to stand up for Messiah, and men who don't live out their faith with passion are blind men. They have no business flying Yahweh's plane filled with his people, because they'll just end up putting the plane in the ditch. Now, we have great elders here. They are men who you can trust and look up to. They take their role of overseers and protectors and servants seriously. They aren't in this for pride or glory. They are in it to serve Yeshua Messiah, and you are a blessed people because of that. Yahweh wants you to model yourselves after these men. Peter says they are our examples. And then he says, likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Yes, all of you be submissive one to another, and be clothed with humility, for Yahweh resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of Yahweh, that he may exalt you in due time. That's what Peter tells us. We need to submit to our elders. We should live in such a way that we eventually become like them and model their priorities for Messiah in our own lives. Because if you're younger, sooner or later, if you follow the elders, you turn into the elders sooner or later. And then the younger follow you. It's not rocket science. But Peter doesn't stop there. He says we all are to be submissive one to another. All of you be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. Most of the time when folks ride on airplanes, they are there to be served. They've paid a lot of money for that trip, and they want a pillow. They want a meal. They want to watch a movie. Oftentimes, when they don't want something special, they just want to be left alone. The more important they are, the more they want others to serve them. Now, that is the way some people do church. They come to the church building and sit facing the stage, and they intend to be served. Or, looking bored again, I slap my wrist and look at the watch, and I turn to the man beside me and say, did my watch stop? How long is Frank or Kenyon or Lee going to be talking? Have you in on a secret here. Anyone who gives up front here and speaks does so because they love Yeshua, and they want to share what's on their mind, on their heart. Perhaps there are times when we could be a little more conscious of time and be more to the point in what we say. But we're up here speaking because we are trying to serve you by our words. Now, that doesn't happen here. At least no one tells me that I talk too long. But there are churches where that happens almost every week. Now, why? Because there are people who come to church to be served, not to serve. Whether it is being offended at music and long-winded talks, or with a boring sermon, they've lost the view of what church is all about. It's all about serving one another. But Peter writes, all of you be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. What Peter is telling us, that maybe the way things are at the other end, they may go to church and take their seats with the intention of being served, but not here. Here Yahweh calls us to be servants of one another. You haven't done church until you've ministered to someone in this congregation. Now there's a reason for that. There's a reason why we need to be ministered to each other. 1 Peter 5 verse 8 says, your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The people seated here every week who have been under attack over the past few days, they're hurting and they need someone to reach over and pray for them or listen to them as they tell their troubles. Now granted, that is the job of the elders. And yes, the preachers need to be there for the folks when they're struggling. But the elders and the preachers can't be everywhere. And so Yahweh is counting on you to make a difference for others. That's what He's saved you for. To be able to do. That's what church is all about. Church is all about us submitting and serving one another. The elders are supposed to submit to us. You are to submit yourself to the elders. And you are to submit yourselves to one another. We all do that so that all of us gets to our destination as safely and comfortably as possible. But what do we do when that doesn't happen? What do we do when the elders and the preachers aren't all that good at their job? What do we do when the believers around us fail to meet our needs and they're not there to strengthen us and comfort us when we struggle? What do we do then? Well, Peter tells us, cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Who is Him? Yahweh and Yeshua. Be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in faith, because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of sufferings. And the Elohim of grace, who called you to His eternal glory in Messiah, after you have suffered a little while, will Himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. Cast all your anxiety on Him. When you go through trials and tribulations of this life, know that there is an Elohim who called you to His eternal glory in Messiah, and who will Himself restore you, strong and firm and steadfast. Now here's the deal. The church is a place Yahweh wants us so that we can be sheltered from the struggles and difficulties of this world. Yahweh wants us to be sheltered by the fatherly hand of good elders. And Yahweh wants us to be protected and nurtured by other believers who know us and care what happens to us. Yahweh wants them to pray for us and holds us when we need comforting. But the sad truth of life is that mortals often fail. We all sin and fall short of the glory of Yahweh. We all get busy living our own lives and facing our own problems. We all get distracted and fail to be there for others on too many occasions. The problem for a lot of believers is that when the church fails them, they don't know what to do. They get frustrated and angry and feel abandoned and rejected. If the elders don't do their job and the preacher doesn't do his, or the congregation comes off as being unloving and uncaring, they feel lost and betrayed. But I noticed something here in 1 Peter 5. While Peter tells the elders what their job is, while he tells the rest of us what our job is, not once did he say, cast your cares on them. Not once did he say, these folks will make you strong and firm and steadfast. Not once did he say that people will protect you from Satan. Why not? Because that's not technically our job. Whose job is it? It's Yahweh's job. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Yahweh will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. Let's face it, folks. I will fail you now and again. The elders will fail you. Your fellow church members will fail you. There may come a time when none of us will be able to be there for you. But Yahweh will. Yahweh will always be there for you. He will never leave you, and he will never forsake you. His is the voice you need to listen to, for when everyone else fails to save you from your troubles, he will. Just outside Miami, Doug White, his wife, and 2 daughters were flying home from a funeral. Around 1:30 in the afternoon, the plane pilot suffered a heart attack and died. Now, White had just gotten his own pilot's license, flying the small planes, but the King 200 was far more complicated and difficult plane to fly. It's the type of plane that requires instrument training and special skills to fly safely. White didn't have that. Fighting down his panic, he realized the pilot's body might at any time slump back over the controls and cause the plane to lose control, and realized that even with help, he might not get the plane down. He nervously keyed the mic and he said, Miami, I've got to declare an emergency. My pilot's unconscious. I need help up here. For what seemed like an eternity, there was no reply. But then a calm, assuring voice from outside of his plane talked him through the next 45 minutes. And because of that calm voice from outside the plane, White was able to land the plane safely. The pilot he had counted on no longer helped him. White needed that voice from outside to bring his family safely home. One of my favorite passages in scriptures, and from Isaiah 40, verse 28 through 31. Has thou not known? Has thou not heard that the everlasting Elohim, Yahweh, the creator of the ends of the earth, faints not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. He gives power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon Yahweh shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Here's the deal. We need each other in this church. We need strong and godly elders, and we need the folks seated around us on Sabbath. We need each other in order to handle the daily struggles of life. But ultimately, it's Yahweh who gives us strength when we're weary. It's Yahweh who can renew our lives and make it so that we can run and not grow weary and walk and not faint. Yahweh bless.